Family Ties. Written and abridged by Joanna Toye and read by Miriam Margolyes. It was the beginning of a new year, the second of a new decade. In the parlour at Brookfield Farm, Jack Archer, his high colour attributable to rather more than the heat of the fireside, held out his glass.
"How about some more of that rich and ripe old cooking port, Dad?"
Doris noticed Peggy's darted look, but Dan refilled his elder son's glass to the brim before either mother or wife could get a word in.
"Cooking port?" Dan protested. "You've got no palate on you, lad. Your mother bought that at old Mrs. Benson's sale 2 years ago, and goodness only knows how long it had been laying down in her cellar. Doesn't seem to have been lying down in very good company." Jack raised his glass. "Cheers!"
It was well after midnight, after the chimes of Big Ben on the wireless, and the inevitable arrival of their neighbour Walter Gabriel, first footing his way round all the houses in the village in the correct assumption of a free drink. Doris had rather hoped for the blissful comfort of her bed, but the men were still raring to go. Dan got to his feet, steadily, she was pleased to see. It would be lack of sleep which would affect her and Dan in the morning, not an excess of alcohol. Like Peggy, who was 8 months pregnant with her third child, Doris hadn't touched a drop all night. She preferred the taste of her elderflower cordial, her grandmother's recipe anyway. Dan cleared his throat, and the chatter subsided. Doris smiled lovingly up at him. It would be 30 years this year since they had married, and Doris had never regretted a second of it. Their daughter Christine, seated on the footstool by the fire, looked up at her father, whilst their younger son, Philip, broke off his rather intense conversation with Grace Fairbrother. Grace was the daughter of a well-to-do farmer in the district, and Doris had been nervous about her joining them for what was really just a simple family supper. Despite rationing, Doris prided herself at putting on a good spread. But would Grace turn up a ladylike nose at the planned meal of cold meats, homemade pork pie and pickles? However, Phil had been seeing quite a bit of Grace lately, and had specially wanted to include her in the festivities. In the end, Doris hadn't liked to be difficult about it, and though to her eye Grace had hardly eaten anything, she had been very flattering about Doris's piccalilli. Even so, Doris was glad she'd made Chris shine up the cake forks in Grace's honour.
"Now we've all got our glasses filled," began Dan importantly. "Here's a toast. Pray silence for the Lord and Master of Brookfield Farm and sire of the illustrious family of Archer," ragged Phil. Christine told her brother firmly to shut up. Dan continued undeterred, bathed in the glow of his family's affection. "All I want to say is, here's to the coming year, and may we all get what we're after. May we go on being as happy and united a family as we've been up to now, and—" He paused for effect. "May the weather be a bit kinder to all farmers." "Hear, hear!" roared Jack. Doris wondered silently if all the mishaps at Jack and Peggy's smallholding could really be blamed on the weather. Jack had forgotten to spray against mildew last spring, and when he should have been lifting his leeks, he'd found himself a driving job for a fortnight. Suddenly, Grace spoke up. "I just wanted to say, I hope you'll always be here, and that I'll be able to—" She stopped and put the back of her hand to her lips. "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't go on. I always get like this on New Year's Eve." Phil reached over and squeezed her other hand, and Christine arched her eyebrows. She didn't believe this tentative, faltering little me act for 1 minute. Grace's father, George, had made a fortune in plastics before buying his farm in Ambridge, and still divided his time between the village and his factory. He was dynamic, forceful.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?